This story begins in a small village in the south of India, in the city of Chennai. Now, all of the men in this village have the same job. They are all fishermen. Every morning when the sun begins to rise in the sky, they wake up, they go down to the ocean's edge, they jump into their boats and they set sail on the waves. They go out into the horizon, they take their nets, they cast them into the water and they catch many fish. Some of which they take home to feed their families and others they sell at the market for some money. Now, one of these fishermen had a son, a beautiful boy whose name was Santosh, which in Tamil means happy. And he was happy, and he made everyone around him smile. Now, Santosh was happy when he was playing with his friends, when he was splashing in the water, when he was running up and down on the beach. But the time he was the happiest was when he was allowed to ride in the boat with his father. When his dad would let him jump aboard and he would wrap his arms around his dad, resting his chin on his father's shoulder, his eyes closed as they set sail over the waves. As he felt the breeze on his skin, he would smile. He never wanted those moments to end. They were the happiest moments of his life. But Santosh wasn't always allowed to ride in the boat with his father, because sometimes the sea is unpredictable, the waves are too high, the tide is too strong, the winds are blowing ferociously, and it's not safe for a small boy to be riding in the boat. On those days, Santosh would sit and watch as the boats disappeared into the line between water and sky, and he would feel sad. He wished that he was old enough to go out with them. On those days, Santosh would sit and he would write his name over and over again in the sand, watching as the hungry waves would bubble up onto the shore and snatch the words away. Now, he had probably written his name maybe 20 or 30 times that day when he stopped after hearing a sound. La 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 la. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Santosh saw that standing before him was a small girl. She was probably about his age. Oh, she was very pretty. Long black hair tied into 2 long braids, at the end bright red ribbons. On her wrists, she had bangles and bracelets that shone bright red in the sunlight. She looked at Santosh and she smiled. She said, "Hi, I'm Mala. Would you like to be friends?" Santosh nodded. They played together all day long, running up and down the beach, swimming in the water, splashing in the waves. They played with ball, they played hide and seek. They had a wonderful time. But as the day went on and the games became more and more fun and Mala started to trust Santosh, she asked him a question. "Santosh, would you like to see a ghost?" Well, Santosh had 2 answers to this question, yes and no, because his feelings were mixed. Part of him knew better than to go chasing ghosts in the village. He'd been warned about this by his father. But the other part of him was quite excited. He'd never seen a ghost before, and if he went back to school and told all of his friends that he had saw a real-life ghost, he'd be the coolest kid in the school. So he looked at Mala and without saying a word, Mala explained something. One simple but very important thing about the ghost they were about to see. "This ghost, you must not let him touch your hand. If the ghost touches your hand, you become a ghost as well." Santosh looked at his hands. He placed them in his pocket and they started to walk. Now Marla explained they had to be very quiet because if the people of the village knew what they were doing, they would be in very big trouble. They crept past the houses, climbing over rocks, ducking down under the windows of their neighbours and families and friends, until they came to the edge of the village. And as they left their village, the place they called home, Santosh noticed that there was a house outside of the village. He'd never seen the house before. And as they walked closer, he realised that it was very different from the houses that he knew. It looked as if it had been burned. The walls were black and the windows were cracked. Shattered glass was scattered on the ground. Snakes were slithering over the glass, swallowing beetles whole. Rats and mice were scurrying at the open door that creaked in the wind. And from the broken glass of the window, small curtains fluttered on the breeze, flying there like little ghosts. Marla called Santosh over, and they came to the window. They climbed up, resting their chin, looking through the broken glass into darkness. Santosh looked, he squinted his eyes, he tried to see, but he couldn't see a thing. He said to Marla, but Marla said, "Shh, wait, the ghost is coming." As they looked through the window, Santosh noticed something in the corner of the room of the house. There he could see one single flame flickering. And as he focused his eyes, he saw behind the flame was a very old face. And when Santosh looked, he could see that the eyes of the face were as dark as night. He could see the lines dancing over this face that was so thin, it looked like the face of a skeleton. Santosh saw twists and knots of wiry white hair. And when he looked into the mouth, he saw not one single tooth and a tongue that was black and purple. As Santosh looked, he started to shake. He felt so scared, but also he felt very excited. He studied every inch of this creature, of this ghost, of this being from top to toe and toe to top. He saw the long, thin arms, the skeleton-like fingers. He saw the way that they clutched onto the candle. It was like the withered branches of an old tree. And as Santosh looked, he smiled until the face, the ghost, looked at him. He looked at the ghost and the ghost looked at him. And the ghost hissed one word as it raised one of its fingers. Ghost! Santosh and Marla jumped down. Marla was giggling and she was laughing. But when they turned round, they noticed that the ghost, the old man, was standing in the doorway of the house. He was pointing again at Marla and Santosh, and he was screaming, "Ghost!" Marla ran away as fast as she could, and Santosh tried to chase after her, but he wasn't very fast at running. He was running as fast as he could, but every time he turned around, he could see the old man. The ghost was following him. He ran and he ran and he ran. But he was so awkward in his movements that his legs became twisted and he fell down into the sand. There was sand in his eyes, in his nose, in his mouth, in his ears. As he wiped it away and he looked up, he saw the old man standing before him. The old man was reaching out his hand, trying to take Santosh's. Luckily for Santosh, he managed to spring up and run down the beach, and the old man was left behind. When he arrived back at the beach, Marla was smiling. She was laughing. She said, "That was so fun." But Santosh shook his head. He said, I don't want to play with you anymore. I don't want to." Marla said, "Sorry, Santosh, but you told me that you wanted to. Okay, tomorrow, no more ghosts, I promise." And he nodded. She said, "Santosh, it's time to go now. It's very late. But before I go, can I ask you something? Can I touch your hand?" Santosh said, "Okay." He reached out his hand and he watched as his friend reached out hers. But Santosh's mind was preoccupied and he was looking out to the sea. He didn't see that Marla's eyes suddenly turn a very deep and dark red. He suddenly didn't see that her smile started to turn into that of a very hungry snake when it sees a defenseless mouse. Just as their fingers were about to touch, just as she was about to touch Santosh's hand, he heard a sound again. Ghost! When he looked, he saw the old man, the ghost, standing on the beach, pointing not at Santosh, but at Marla. When Santosh turned around, Marla was gone. And when he looked down, all that was left of his friend were some pieces of her broken red bangles.